Hi, everybody. Ted Haggard here from St. James Church in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And of course, my wife and I serve the Storehouse, which is the house church ministry of St. James. And if you're interested in looking up our website, it is thestorehouse.homes. That's thestorehouse.homes. And you can go there, you can give, you kind of see what we do, see a few pictures. If you click on the pictures, very often more description comes up. It's a very simple website. Okay, it's not dynamic. We don't adjust it every week. It just sits there, and so people can go and kind of figure out what's happening. Okay, most of you know we follow the Bible Highlights booklet, which means we go from Genesis to Revelation and get the primary highlights of the Bible in the course of a year. And it's always really exciting. And this Sunday, we are in Job 1 and 2. And Job is considered the oldest book of the Bible. The texts are older than any of the other texts that we have. And it's a great, great lesson. And of course, it's been considered inspired and inerrant all the way through the centuries. So I'm reading it to you today out of the New Living Translation. And there's so much we want to cover here. We may go a little longer than 15 minutes, but here we go. Here it says, there was once a man named Job. You can always spot a politician that tries to quote the Bible because they'll call this the book of Job, J-O-B. And then this is the story of Job, who is a godly man. And then things go wrong for him. And then he has Job's counselors come and start to talk with him about why things went wrong with him. And Job's counselor, the point of this book is Job's counselors are wrong. And Job remains godly through his troubles, okay? But when a politician quotes Job, very often trying to appeal to believers, they'll very often quote Job's counselors who are wrong. And so it's true, you can quote the Bible and be quoting the wrong people. And so I always laugh when you see some of these politicians trying to appeal to church folks or whatever. They say, like the book of Job says, and then they quote it. And you can tell they had some secular idiot kid doing the research for them. And they end up saying all the wrong stuff. And so anyway, enough on that. Okay, let's get to it. This is the New Living Translation. And here he says, there was once a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. Now think of those four descriptives. Blameless, a man of integrity. He feared God. He stayed away from evil. Now that's interesting because this word, a man of complete integrity, that is a word that's used in the Old Testament. Of course, that's Hebrew, and in the equivalent of it in the New Testament. And sometimes it's, most often it's translated blameless, like it is here, blameless, a man of complete integrity. But other times it's translated perfect. Other times it's translated whole. He's complete, body, mind, spirit, all in harmony with one another. Or sound, when we talk about a horse being sound, it means it's strong, its legs and its feet operate in harmony together. So there's soundness. Sometimes it's translated honest, of integrity, and that's listed here. Other times it's translated honorable, or, now this is interesting, innocent, or in Genesis, this idea is translated as nakedness. Adam and Eve were naked. And then when they sinned, they covered themselves. All right. So in the Old Testament, it's communicated like nakedness, innocence, purity, like a little kid, kind of. Actually, in the New Testament, Jesus refers to the same idea as childlikeness. All right. And so anyway, it's a person of good faith, a person of truth, in other words, integrity, a person of honor. And so this Job, he's got the right words describing him. All right. It says in verse 2, he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. Now that was very important in this era because, of course, it was an agricultural community. And your sons and your daughters would do the work, manage the property, grow up, have their own homes. They're on the farm, and the daughters would prepare things and be there as well. Now, here it says he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen. That would be at least 2, maybe sometimes 4. 500 female donkeys. That means able to reproduce. All right. He also had many servants. All right. So this morning I thought, I wonder what he was really worth in today's thing. So I just Googled how much is a sheep worth? How much is a camel worth? How much is a team of oxen worth? All right. So I calculated it out. The sheep are worth $2,100,000 in today's dollars. To have that meant 7,000 of them. Camels, he had 3,000 of them. They're worth $40,500,000. All right. Now that's in the United States. If you go to Saudi Arabia, they're cheaper. Okay. All right. If a team of oxen, $1,250,000, the donkeys aren't worth much, $250,000. And you can get donkeys cheaper or more expensive. I took the average here. You can get donkeys as cheap as free, actually, right now. All right. So he has a total of $44 million there, not counting his sons, not counting his land, not counting his daughters. And back in that day, children could be sold into slavery. Nowadays, if you believe in abortion, we just kill them. All right. So in verse 4, it says, Job's sons would take turns preparing feasts in their homes. So they were grown, they had their own homes. And they would also invite their 3 sisters to celebrate with them. When these celebrations ended, sometimes after several days, Job would purify his children. He would get up early in the morning, offer a burnt offering for each of them. For Job said to himself, perhaps my kids have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. By cursing God, what that would mean in common language nowadays is cussed. All right, or cursed. This was Job's regular practice. Now, here was the presupposition that this oldest book in the Bible is dealing with. It's dealing with the traditional equation that people go with all over the world, that if you're good, you're going to prosper, and if you're not so good, you're going to have trouble. Actually, I saw this and think it might be interesting to you. Virtue is good because it brings rewards, and wickedness is as much folly as it is sin because it lands those who commit it in avoidable trouble. So there is hardly ever any doubt expressed that a man can choose whether to join the righteous or throw in his lot with the wicked, and therefore he is, to that extent, master of his own fate. And every church in the world, every mosque, every synagogue, every group teaches that. This book says that's not always the case. All right, so here we have one day the members of the heavenly court. So that would be God, that would be angels. All right, came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser, Satan. Now, Satan is the accuser of all of us. All right, he is the destroyer. He is the same idea here. Satan is the adversary, the prosecutor, the accuser. If you've ever had an enemy, it's Satan. He says here it's Satan is not a decision maker in this text, but Satan is nasty. He's brazen. He's impertinent toward God. He's cynical and sneering about people. And so here Satan is there, and I want you to notice Here God says, where have you come from? The Lord asked Satan. And Satan answered the Lord, I've been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on. Then the Lord asked Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? Now, there you go. All right. Have you noticed my servant Job? He's the finest man in all the earth. He's blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil. Now, here's Satan makes the point. His point is, yeah, Job serves you because it benefits him. Job worships you because it benefits him. It makes him wealthy. We have whole movements in Christianity today that teach that. All right, so Satan replied to the Lord, yes, but Job has a good reason to fear God. You have always put a wall of protection around him and his home and his property. You've made him prosper in everything he does. Look how rich he is. But reach out and take away everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. All right, you may test him. The Lord said to Satan, do whatever you want with everything he possesses. Don't harm him physically. So Satan left the Lord's presence, and one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting in the oldest brother's house, a messenger arrived at Job's home with the news. Your oxen were plowing with the donkeys feeding beside them. Then the Sabians raided us. They stole the animals. They killed all the farmhands. I am the only one who escaped to tell you. While he was speaking, another messenger arrived with this news. The fire of God has fallen from heaven and burned up our sheep and all the shepherds. I am the only one who escaped to tell you. While he was speaking, a third messenger arrived with the news. 3 bands of Chaldeans, raiders, have stolen your camels and killed your servants. I'm the only one who escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived with the news. Your sons and daughters were feasting in their older brother's home. Suddenly, a powerful wind swept in from the wilderness and hit the house on all sides. The house collapsed and all your children are dead. I'm the only one who escaped to tell you. So Job stood up in his robes of grief. Then he shaved his head, fell to the ground in worship, and said, I came naked from my mother's womb. I will be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I have, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin by blaming God. All right. So that's that. Now, we operate under the presupposition if things go bad for people, that means something's wrong with them. They've sinned. They have a secret sin. They have what their accusers saying are true, all that type of thing. That is not the case. This is the oldest text in the Bible. And so this is a presupposition for how we ought to view life. It's very interesting. One day, the members of the heavenly court came again to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser, the Satan, came with them. Where have you come from? The Lord asked Satan, and Satan answered the Lord, I've been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on. And the Lord asked Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? He does it again. And by the way, I believe this happens. Let me just tell you, I believe that this happened recently. I think Satan came before God and said the evangelical church in America does not believe the gospel. And God said, oh, yes, it does. They've spread the gospel all over the world. They've built more Bible schools, more seminaries. They've built more Christian radio stations. They've built more churches than any other group in the history of the world. And Satan said, well, let me test it. And then a good born-again believer named President Bill Clinton sinned. And then he repented. And he was up at Bill Hybels' church, and Bill Hybels was hosting him, and he was so sorry what had happened. He repented, and the evangelical church refused to offer the gospel and condemned him. And so we proved in that we do not practice the gospel, even though we say we believe it. We say we believe it when we give an altar call. But when we're offering church discipline, we're Old Testament people. We say, if something went wrong, it's because of their sin. And we blame people for their sin, not understanding that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so we are not in the position to try to figure out why people are going through a difficult time, or why they have an old sin nature, or why they've been in the midst of the crosshairs of the devil and God trying to help them. But instead, our job is to encourage people, to strengthen people, to offer encouragement and grace, to offer forgiveness and healing and restoration and kindness. Satan answered the Lord, I've been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on. This is verse 3 in chapter 2. Then the Lord asked Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? He's the finest man in the earth. He's blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil. And he has maintained his integrity, even though you urged me to harm him without cause. Satan replied to the Lord, skin for skin. A man will give up everything he has to save his life. So here first he says, Job's just serving you because he gets stuff. He gets money, he gets houses, he gets respect, he gets honor, he gets all that. And now Satan is saying, he serves you just because you keep him healthy. How many of you have ever heard of bodily healing in the atonement? How many of you have ever heard the Lord will take care of his children and he stores up wealth with the ungodly for the godly? Here he says, but reach out and take away his health. He'll surely curse you to your face. All right, do with him as you please, the Lord said to Satan, but spare his life. So Satan left the Lord's presence and struck Job with terrible boils from head to foot. Job scraped his skin with a piece of broken pottery as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die. But Job replied, you talk like a foolish woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad? Do you hear what he's saying here? He's saying we don't serve God for the benefits. We don't serve God even for the salvation. We don't serve God for our health. We don't serve God for the respect it gives us or the honor it gives us. Listen, we serve God because God is God. Here it says, so in all this, Job said nothing wrong. All right, here come his friends. When 3 of Job's friends heard of the tragedy he had suffered, he got together and traveled from their home to comfort and console him. Okay, that's a good godly thing to do. Their names were Eliphaz, Temanite, and Bildad, the Shuhite, and Zophar, the Naamite. When they saw Job from a distance, they scarcely recognized him, wailing loudly. So they mourned with those who mourn. They tore their robes and threw dust in the air over their heads to show their grief. So they cared for him. They were kind. They were outreaching to him. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and nights. No one said a word. They were wise, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words. They shared in his sorrow. Now, the rest of the book of Job is these guys analyzing with Job why he was suffering. And everything they said was wrong. What's interesting is not one of them knew why he was really suffering. They never said, could there have been a meeting between God and Satan? And Job is an honorable man, and he lost all of his property, lost his health, lost his sons, lost his daughters, lost his comfort because Satan and Job were in a conflict. So all of their analysis was wrong. All of their guesses were wrong. All of their determinations that Job should be disciplined for his secret sins were wrong. And this is the oldest book in the Bible. This is the first one. This is the presupposition that we need to get over ourselves and our ability to analyze other people's problems. And we need to just cool off and encourage people in God. We need to stop thinking we've got all the answers. We need to stop thinking that the Bible is a set of formulas that are always true in every situation, every time. It's just not true. This dynamic in earth is to establish a relationship between God and people. And that is the essence of the story. So for those of you that have ever judged the church or judged a believer or judged somebody else for their condition, and you know in all your wisdom what they need to do or shouldn't do, you're probably a fool. And it would be good to repent, reread Job, look at Job's advisors and see how that's what you'll hear on a lot of Sunday mornings, what Job's advisors say. And Job's advisors were wrong. Reread Job. It'll be good for all of us. And we can all have a healthier spiritual life and better relationships with one another. All right. I think that's enough for today. The Lord Jesus bless you richly. All right. Bye-bye.